Obviously, that's kind of an important process, and as you can see, it's the consistency of wet leather, believe it or not. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is just hand mold this a little bit. And I'm going to use just this little tool. You can use the end of a hammer. Anything that's a wooden or plastic and smooth, you can use for this. But basically, I'm just going to work this. And then once it's worked, I'm going to put my form pieces on here. So I'll show you the next step once I get these all clamped in place. And then we'll see how it looks overnight when I take the form off. So it's been about 20 hours. As you'll see, it's still in the mold. I just kind of took those off, but you see the leather, when you wet form it, it gets stretched, and you'll see that kind of curve there. That's fine. I'm going to end up trimming that with an X-Acto knife. Let me just take these off. And you'll see there's probably still a little bit of moist spots right underneath the wood. That's pretty much it. It's some of this darker area is going to come out and just kind of blend in once we get the stain on here and some of the oils and stuff. So let me get this trimmed up, and then we'll trim up the back piece and glue them together so you can kind of see what it's going to look like. Right here, I'm just kind of trying to flare it up on the sides. Gives a little extra strength and kind of more of a pocket look. So you'll see it'll be a straight line, and then it's going to flare up on the sides. Okay, so I've got this kind of trimmed the way I want. I'm going to set it on another piece of leather so that it can be this back flap that ends up folding over like that. So we'll get it right there. I've already kind of traced out the lines, and then what I'm going to do right here is just make sure it tapers just a little bit coming up top, so that when it folds over, it's not looking like such a huge chunky piece of leather. So let me get this cut out, and we'll get it glued together. Okay, so this step, this is just the back panel, and before we attach it to the front of the shell carrier, we need to attach a belt loop, and I got to do it now so that I've got access to both sides before I stitch this. So I'm just using copper rivets. This is an old, just a scrap piece of leather when we were cutting out our other stuff, and it's just going to attach there, fold over, and then I'll attach two more there with copper rivets. So we've got this belt loop attached now. As you can see, just I guess like a Levi's jeans style copper rivet. So basically, I'm just going to rubber cement this on. The rubber cement is not going to be what's actually truly holding it for the long term. It's going to be the stitching. But what the rubber cement's going to do is help me, or basically help hold this thing together so I can kind of finish it, get the holes stitched. You know, do all that good stuff. So it's just going to be kind of a temporary bond. Okay, what I'm going to do here is use this little tool to set my my number of stitches per inch. So I'm just going to go on my edge groove line, just like this, and just run it back and forth. And you're going to see it's going to make some marks. Alright, well now comes the scary part, because anytime you dye leather, depending on what part of the cow or whatever animal you have, leather will accept dye in different ways. Some people will say you gotta wet the leather before you put the dye on. Some people say do it dry. You know what, I just kind of want to work with what I have. This is actually some old mixed up light brown and saddle tan leather dye I have, so that's what I have left over, so that's what I'm going to use for this. I think it'll turn out fine, and if there's some splotches, not a big deal. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. I think so. And then we'll just do some small taps to flare that out. I like to kind of go in a little circle, and I don't know if you can see that, but that's perfectly flared out.